On behalf of the board of the Lower Merion Historical Society, I wanted to welcome you to tonight's presentation. I'm Dennis Montagna, and this is really a sort of, I think, a watershed event. This is the first of its kind for us, which is, carrying out a virtual presentation. Many other organizations have done this a number of times over the last few years. This is our maiden voyage with it. And we're really, really pleased at the level of interest that we've had in this presentation. And our goal as an organization is really to continue this and to develop it and really fulfill our mission, which is, to preserve and share the rich stories of Lower Merion and Narberth, and to really work to broaden the kinds of stories that we tell and broaden the voices telling those stories. And so tonight we'll be going back to really the earliest days of the township and Narberth, and what came to be known as Lower Merion and Narberth. Um, from Bala Cynwyd to North Wales, Merion to Montgomery Township, the area around Philadelphia is filled with places whose names come from Wales. Connor Duffy, who's here with us tonight, will share with us the fascinating story of Welsh settlement in the Delaware Valley, and really how it helped to shape our communities today. Um, Connor, welcome. Connor's a board member of the Montgomery Township Historical Society, and he's a lead tour guide at Fort Mifflin and also a recent graduate of Montgomery County Community College. Um, he's researched and given presentations on the history of Welsh settlement in the Delaware Valley in partnership with the Welsh Society of Philadelphia, and he will be continuing his undergraduate education at Swansea University in Wales in the fall. And actually, I just met Connor a few weeks ago when he hosted a film crew from Wales who interviewed him at the Merion Meeting House, the Welsh Quaker Meeting House, and uh, basically grabbed him to give a talk. We had a very small window because come the early part of September, he'll be heading over to Wales to begin his studies there. Um, Before we start the talk tonight, I just wanted to take care of a few housekeeping reminders. Please keep yourself on mute throughout Connor's presentation, and feel free to use the chat function to pose questions and share comments. Connor's presentation uh, will last probably about a half hour or so, so we'll have plenty of time for discussion and questions. This presentation is being recorded, and it'll be available later on the Lower Merion Historical Society's channel, either on our YouTube channel or a Vimeo link. Um, so anyway, Connor, welcome. I'm gonna go sort of kick it over to you right now and go ahead and get started. And later after the talk is over, we will, people will feel free to unmute yourselves, raise your hand, and Erin Betley is going to be monitoring the chat. She's the vice president of our organization, and she'll be monitoring that afterwards. So anyway, welcome to everybody again, and Connor, take it away.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Or Shwmae pawb a croeso, as they would say in Wales. I'm delighted to be with you tonight to share the fascinating and far too little known story of the Welsh in the Delaware Valley. The most prudent way to start this presentation would be with some information about the country of Wales itself. So, let's head across the pond to the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, or UK as it's often known, consists of 4 different countries: England, which is highlighted in green, Scotland, highlighted in yellow, Wales, highlighted in orange, and Northern Ireland, highlighted in, well, a different shade of orange. Wales is situated here, west of England and east of Ireland. Its capital is here, in the city of Cardiff, or Caerdydd, as it's known in Welsh. The population of the country is 3.1 million, about 30% of which speak the official language of Wales, Welsh, or Cymraeg. Wales itself is known as Cymru in Welsh, which it comes from a word meaning countryman. It's one of the most spoken Celtic languages, and despite a long period of decline, is actually now growing as time goes on. Welsh has relatively recently become mandatory in public schools in Wales alongside English. A far cry from long ago where school children could actually be punished for speaking Welsh in school. The country is 8,023 square miles in size, about the size of New Jersey, and the landscape is stunning. There are beautiful beaches, lush forests, tall mountain peaks, and plenty of picturesque rolling farmland. My personal favorite thing to see in Wales are its many castles, and I mean many. The country has the most castles per square mile in the world, owing to the rebellious nature of the Welsh people and the constant fighting over the land. To give you some perspective on this, remember how I said that Wales is about the size of New Jersey? Think about how many Wawas there are in the Garden State. You practically can't drive half a mile without seeing one. Well, there are over 100 more castles in Wales than there are Wawas in New Jersey. That gives you a pretty good perspective, right? Wales is often known as the land of song. Singing and music, as well as poetry, are deeply ingrained into Welsh culture. I'm sure you all know Tom Jones, for example, who was born in Wales, but I can assure you that Welsh culture goes beyond just this celebrity. He was actually born right there where the arrow is in a town called Pontypridd. Because of the Welsh knack for song and poetry, it's not unusual that even the legends of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table actually originated in Wales. There's actually a town called Carmarthen, which comes from a Welsh word meaning Merlin's fort. It's deeply ingrained into a lot of the stories and legends there. But on the topic of kings and knights, let's take a look at the history of Wales. The land has been inhabited for many thousands of years, and by the dawn of the 1st century, all of Great Britain was settled by countless Celtic tribes, known simply as the Brittonic Celts. It would be in the 1st century that the Romans would invade Great Britain and occupy it for over 360 years. The Romans influenced Celtic languages, including what would become Welsh, quite a bit during their occupation, with many similarities held between it and Latin. After the Romans left Wales, Welsh kingdoms would rise, consolidating power and territory over time in the medieval era. While some rulers were able to gain influence over other kingdoms, the land would never truly be united. It would be this lack of unity that would leave them vulnerable when King Edward I of England conquered Wales in 1272, leaving the land a principality under the Kingdom of England, essentially a colony. Several revolts did occur, such as the one led by Owain Glyndŵr, but none were able to re-establish Welsh independence. Eventually, King Henry VIII passed the Laws of Wales Acts in the 1530s, and Wales was formally absorbed into the Kingdom of England. Part of the irony of this would actually be that Henry VIII was from the Tudor dynasty, which was a Welsh dynasty of kings and queens, but he himself would be the one that would annex Wales into England. Over 100 years later, the Kingdom of England was expanding its empire overseas in earnest under the newly crowned King Charles II, who wanted to consolidate his territory in North America. King Charles II also happened to owe a debt to one Sir William Penn, an admiral in the Royal Navy who helped the king come to power. When Admiral William Penn died in 1670, the debt was now owed to his son, also named William Penn. You're probably a little more familiar with this one. So, let's talk about William Penn, the Admiral's son. He was born in London in 1644. At a young age, he met with a missionary who introduced him to the Quaker faith. Penn soon joined the Society of Friends, the official name for the Quakers. However, Quakers were often persecuted in England for their faith and were considered dissenters against the Church of England. Penn himself was actually thrown in prison multiple times for preaching his belief, even ending up in the Tower of London for some time. Now, the Quaker faith is a very broad and open religious movement with no official creed. It commonly focuses on the idea of a personal relationship with God, pacifism, and the rejection of hierarchical structures. As you can imagine, the Church of England and the monarchy at this time disagreed quite a bit with those tenets. In 1681, King Charles II would find a way to kill two birds with one stone. To settle his debt with the Penn family, the king gave William Penn a large amount of land in North America. Penn would then settle this land with his Quaker friends, removing the headache of these pesky Quakers from England and Wales as well. Well, Penn's vision for his colony was a land with religious freedom, where people from Europe that were persecuted for their religious beliefs could have a safe haven to live. He referred to this vision as the Holy Experiment, and its tenets would become a part of what the United States itself was founded upon. This painting, which is entitled Penn's Vision, is actually inside the Pennsylvania State Capitol building. It's important to mention, of course, that the Quaker faith had also spread rapidly in Wales at this point, and by the time Penn had gained his new land in America, he had made many Welsh Quaker friends. Penn himself, despite being born English, had Welsh ancestry, and even claimed that his name, Penn, was Welsh in origin. The Quakers in Wales were also heavily persecuted for their faith. It's estimated that 42% of Quakers that traveled to America from North Wales had been fined or imprisoned for their beliefs in Great Britain. Penn's initial proposed name for his new land was actually New Wales. This was for several reasons. For starters, he thought that the land bore some resemblance to Wales. It was also in honor of his Welsh friends, his Welsh heritage, and likely also because he didn't want people to think that he named the land after himself. But it would be the king himself that would step in and demand that the name be changed to Pennsylvania, in honor of the late Admiral Penn, William Penn's father. Perhaps he really wanted everyone to know that he paid his debt to the admiral. After Penn was granted his new colony, a committee of Welsh Quakers met with him in London to arrange for a tract of 40,000 acres of land in Pennsylvania to be granted to them. This land would come to be known as the Welsh Tract. It was hoped that in this land, the Welsh settlers would be able to have their own local government, where they could conduct all legal affairs in their own language and even collect their own taxes. This proposed Welsh Tract would also become known as the Welsh Barony by William Penn himself. Now, unfortunately for these Welsh settlers, the agreements made with Penn for them to actually have their own regional government were never formally made. Penn would later divide up the Welsh Tract into two separate counties, much to the anger of the committee. These counties now make up Philadelphia County, Delaware County, and Montgomery County. Penn would be referred to as Dwyn Neb, or faceless, by the Welsh people for breaking his promise. By the way, highlighted in yellow is what was at one time, I believe, Chester County, which is now Delaware County. In red in this map is Philadelphia County, part of which is now Montgomery County. Things got really chopped up over time. Nonetheless, the Welsh would be influential in the settlement of the Delaware Valley, and they would be the largest ethnic population immigrating to Pennsylvania from 1682 to 1700. In 1700, they made up a third of the colony's population, which at the time was only 20,000 people. Plenty of Welsh immigrants would also flock to present-day southern New Jersey and in great numbers to modern-day Delaware, which at the time was actually a part of Pennsylvania. Dozens of Welsh place names were established during this first wave of Welsh immigration that still remain to this day. Outside of the Welsh Tract, another important Welsh community was established in Gwynedd Township in 1698, named after the county of Gwynedd in Wales. One Welshman named Edward Folk, who came to live in Gwynedd, actually gave us a detailed account of what the often perilous journey to North America in the 18th century was like. He would write, translated from Welsh, "We were about 11 weeks at sea. and the sore distemper of the bloody flux, dysentery, broke out in the vessel, of which died 45 persons in our passage. The distemper was so mortal that 2 or 3 corpses were cast overboard every day while it lasted. But through the favor and mercy of divine providence, I, with my wife and 9 children, escaped the sore mortality and arrived at Philadelphia the 17th of the 5th month, July, where we were kindly received and hospitably entertained by old friends and acquaintances. It's important to remember that these ships were only powered by sail, made of wood, and had to rely on maps, compasses, and other early navigation tools. There was no GPS at this time. As Edward Folk said, these perilous journeys lasted almost 3 months from Great Britain to North America. In that time, many of the Welsh emigrants on board these ships would actually start to pick up English as a second language. So, let's talk about the very first Welsh settlers to arrive in this land, the Marion Adventurers. These settlers came from the county of Merionethshire in North Wales. They would arrive in Pennsylvania in August of 1682, 2 months before William Penn set foot in Philadelphia, aboard a ship known as the Lion. The Lion sailed as far as possible up the Schuylkill River and dropped off the settlers, who walked to a place known as Pen Coed, which was Welsh for head of the woods. This land would later become Lower Marion Township and Narberth Borough, highlighted in green on this map. These settlers would write to their friends in Wales describing the rich natural resources of their new home. One Dr. Edward Jones would write, "I hope it will please thee, and the rest who are concerned, for it hath most rare timber. I have not seen the like of it in all these parts. There is water enough besides. The end of each lot will be on a river, larger than the Dye at Bala, a place in Wales. It is called the Schuylkill River." Spelled exactly as you see it on the PowerPoint, it took a very, very long time for people to actually start spelling it correctly in documents of the time. I mean, I still have problems today, so can't judge them. These first Welsh settlers would also build the Marian Friends Meeting House, a Quaker meeting house that is still active today. It is also one of the oldest houses of worship in the state of Pennsylvania. Construction of this building began in 1695, or 328 years ago. The building has an unusual design, which is owed to the Welsh carpenters that worked on it. Another Welsh landmark in the area is the Hareton House, which was built in 1704 by Welsh Quaker Rowland Ellis. Ellis originally named the estate Bryn Mawr, which is Welsh for Big Hill. By the way, that also is how you would pronounce Bryn Mawr in Welsh. I've had a few people, Welsh people come over here and get very confused by our pronunciations. The house's name was changed when it was sold in 1719 to a man named Richard Harrison. One of the house's most famous residents was Charles Thomson, Secretary of the Continental Congress and designer of the Great Seal of the United States, which you see there on the bottom right. He very well might have designed it in the house. In 1729, the Welsh Society of Philadelphia was established to assist poor immigrants from Wales. They are still around today and are actually the oldest ethnic society in the United States. I recently attended their 295th annual service for St. David in Philadelphia. It's at the Arch Street Meeting House, actually, in a place called Capel Dewi Sant, or St. David's Chapel. By 1730, Welsh immigration to the area would decline, and new immigrants from Germany, Ireland, and many other regions would start to settle in the area. By 1790, after the Revolutionary War, around 12,000 people of Welsh ancestry were in Pennsylvania, but the state had grown to a population of over 250,000. While the Welsh culture and language started to fade, it would still shine brightly in the Welsh Society of Philadelphia. which continued to help immigrants from Wales when another boom of immigration came in the mid-19th century. The booming coal and iron industry in Pennsylvania, which took off in the mid-1800s, brought with it a new wave of Welsh immigrants, many of whom would settle in the coal regions of northeastern Pennsylvania, around Scranton and the like, others who came to the booming industrial city of Philadelphia. This is a poster that was printed and distributed in Wales in 1841. You can actually see in the upper left-hand corner, this might have been one of the originals because it says 300 copies. Printed in English and Welsh, it advertises steamship journeys for emigrants to Philadelphia and New York City. The last time I visited Wales, I had the chance to check out the original copy of this poster from the archives of the National Library of Wales. By the way, you don't actually have to be a Welsh or UK citizen to get a library card there. Something I learned when I went over. In 1880, a man named George Brook Roberts, born in Bala Cynwyd, became president of the Pennsylvania Railroad. He was a direct descendant of John Roberts, one of the very first Welsh settlers to Pennsylvania, and even lived in his family's ancestral home, which was built by John Roberts in 1682. The estate was located right where the Marion Adventurers first arrived and was known as, well, Penn. By the way, to highlight the importance of the preservation of historic buildings and what can happen if you don't, this building is now the Saks Fifth Avenue in Lower Merion. Yeah, this is pretty tragic, if you ask me. So, under the leadership of George Brook Roberts, the Pennsylvania Railroad became the largest corporation in the entire world in 1882, and its budget was second only to the United States government itself. Roberts was responsible for building railroad infrastructure that would lead to the rapid development of suburban Philadelphia, especially along a railroad which came to be known as the Main Line. The Main Line also ran directly through much of the Old Welsh Tract, and many of the towns established long ago with unique Welsh names like Merion or Bryn Mawr would attract wealthy residents from the city. George Brook Roberts himself was so proud of his Welsh heritage that he donated a great deal of money for a church to be built on the lands that his Welsh ancestor once settled long ago. This is the Church of St Asf, named after a Welsh saint and bearing incredibly similar architecture to the St Asph's Cathedral in Wales. The two are almost exactly alike. Today, 3.8% of Americans, or over 12 million people, have a Welsh surname. And by the way, that's just a Welsh surname, not necessarily Welsh ancestry. So it could be a lot more that have Welsh ancestry. Many famous Americans come from Welsh ancestry, from founding fathers like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, to celebrities like Miley Cyrus, and more recent politicians like Hillary Clinton, Richard Nixon, and Barack Obama. The legacy of the Welsh in the Delaware Valley continues to this day, in the people of Welsh descent who live here, the ideals of religious freedom imparted upon the land by Welsh Quakers, the Welsh Society of Philadelphia, and of course, in the many Welsh place names and landmarks around this area. I hope this presentation enlightened you on the fascinating history of the Welsh in the Delaware Valley. Now, when someone who doesn't come from around here asks you how to pronounce the names of these towns, you can answer them and tell them a fascinating story as well. Thank you very much. So,
yeah. Well, thank you, Connor. That was terrific. So we have Aaron, are there questions in the chat? And also, we'd invite you to go ahead and then unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment directly. Happy to entertain that as well.
No questions in the chat, so folks can feel free to unmute and ask some questions.
Ooh,
Here we go.
Love to hear your recommendations for Welsh language learning. There are some good podcasts. There's a Learn Welsh podcast online. Duolingo is also something that I've been using frequently. But there's also Facebook groups as well. And, you know, you can chat with some Welsh people to help learn and get the correct pronunciations. Google Translate doesn't always work perfectly, especially in the pronunciations. I found that Duolingo does work pretty well, though. Yeah, no problem. If anybody else has any questions, I am still actively researching this topic every day. So there may be some things I don't know, but I'll be sure to write them down so I can look them up later and perhaps get back to you. Led Zeppelin also has Welsh origins. I actually had no idea. That's pretty cool. Thank you, Denise. What will I study in Wales? Oh, I am actually looking to get my bachelor's degree in history. And I figured that traveling to Europe is a wonderful place to do it.
And I would just add, and I know that Bill Bolger asked that question. I would just add that one of the things I've coerced Connor into doing is to try to explore architectural precedents, antecedents for the Welsh Quaker Meeting House. I mean, it's a National Historic Landmark, and I think we're not supposed to have favorite landmarks, but it is one of my favorite landmarks. I know it's one of Bill Bolger's favorites as well. So anyway, Connor's going to be looking into that specifically. So we'll tee him up for the presentation on that once he's able to develop some information and come back.
Yeah, there are some still standing Welsh Quaker meeting houses in Wales, so I'll head over there and take a look at some of them. I visited one last time I was over there, actually. The architecture of the Lower Merion Meeting House is certainly really unique, and it'll be really cool to see if I can find any parallels. Anybody else have any questions? All right.
Great.
Cool.
Terrific. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. As I say, we will be this has been recorded, and we will make it kind of available for anyone who might have missed it and would like to see it later. And on behalf of the Historical Society, I want to wish Connor great luck, and we'll be looking forward to keeping up with him. So we stay in touch with us and carry us along vicariously on your educational journey. We'll really enjoy hearing from you.
Of course. Oh, I actually forgot one slide of the presentation. Might as well do it now. Thank you, or diolch yn fawr, as they say in Wales.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Terrific.
Well, hope you all enjoyed.
Okay, great. Good night, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Have a good night.